Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going over another Witcher review. This time we are doing the Baptism of Fire. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review because I imagine if you're watching this, you've either read the book or you just want to know what happens next. And we are jumping straight into the spoilers, so I really mean it. Spoiler warning, we're jumping straight in right now. Now, I liked Regis as a character. I thought he was great. I liked the fact that he was cool, calm, and collected, and he knew so much. And I liked hearing more about the lore in regards to vampires and how drinking human blood is more like alcohol than food to them. But I want to ask the question, was anyone fooled by the fact that he was a vampire? Like in the book when Dandelion doesn't really understand what's going on, and then Geralt explains that Regis is a vampire. Did anyone not know that from the start? Like, I mean, they found him in a crypt in a graveyard, and his cover story makes a bit of sense where he was collecting certain herbs that only grow in the graveyards. And I mean, like, that's suspicious, but the cover story checks out. But then they immediately run into a group of concerned citizens that are hunting a vampire in that same cemetery. Like, nothing is confirmed in that moment, but did anyone not immediately put two and two together? And even more than that, the chapter where they all go to his cottage and they get drunk, that next chapter begins with a statement about vampires and how they like to eat people, and how garlic doesn't work to ward them off. And I'm just bringing this up because I just wanted to point out that if those concerned citizens on the road didn't immediately tell us that they were hunting a vampire in that same cemetery, I think the reveal that Regis was a vampire would have been a lot more interesting. Anyways, let's get into the review and we'll start off with a brief recap of what's happened in this book. This book takes place about 30 days after the last book ends. Geralt is recovering from mortal wounds in the forest, Ciri is off doing bandit things with the rats, and Yennefer is nowhere to be seen. We later find out though that she is a tiny statue in another sorceress's purse. This book is a lot more Geralt heavy than the other books have been, which I honestly thoroughly enjoyed because it reminded me more of the collections of short stories where he's off doing cool Witcher stuff. And personally, so far, those collections of short stories have been my favorite books. I hear a lot of other people talk about that Baptism of Fire was their favorite book, but so far for me, the short stories have been my favorite books. Let me know what your favorite books have been. Although in saying how much I did enjoy how much more Geralt was in this story, I do wish that there was a lot more Ciri in this story. I wish there was a lot more interaction with Ciri and being a bandit. And I hope in the next book that there is a lot more interaction with Ciri being a bandit. Because I feel like it would be such a wasted opportunity and such a wasted story thread if we didn't get to watch Ciri spiral down into becoming a bloodthirsty killer. Because basically all Ciri did in this book was go to a dance and kill another bandit in a bar fight. Although I did really like that scene when the rat's leader pays off the blood debt. I thought that was really interesting. Yennefer was shrunk into a statue and then unshrunk by the same sorceress. This sorceress saved Yennefer from the fighting on the Wizard Island. This same sorceress and a group of other sorceresses have all gathered together to form a lodge because they believe that magic is above all other forms of government in the world. They bring Yennefer into this council because they believe that she is the key to bringing Ciri into the council. And they want Ciri in the council because they believe with her royal blood, they can put her on a throne and they will have some form of legitimate foothold as a country leading, and as their secret society sorceress lodge. Yennefer ends up escaping with the help of a Nilfgaardian sorceress that is meant to be her enemy, and she winds up in the ocean and goes off on a plot to go and confront the sorcerer that she believes is responsible for everything that's happened, and save Ciri. Geralt is healing in the forest, but upon hearing rumors that Ciri is now in Nilfgaard and engaged to the Nilfgaardian Emperor, he gets up and heads off to go and save her even though he hasn't fully recovered. He teams up with a Lady Archer that fills the role of Lady Archer, the same Lady Archer from every other fantasy story out there, and Dandelion also joins in the fun. They have some run-ins with the army, they watch some battles unfold, and they see some pretty nasty stuff left over from the aftermath of war. They then join a group of dwarves to travel together and a vampire, and they all end up at a refugee camp. The refugee camp is attacked, Geralt and Dandelion are captured, they're taken to an army camp in order to be executed at dawn to raise morale. The vampire ends up saving Geralt and Dandelion, and when they're safe, Geralt tells the vampire, "Thank you for saving me, but it's best that we don't cross paths again." The vampire ignores Geralt's threats because he thinks that it's more important that he sticks around to provide Dandelion with medical attention. Geralt becomes incredibly moody and sassy, and they end up caught between two fighting armies while floating down a river. Geralt and Cahir, or Cahir, I'm not sure how you say his name, the Nilfgaardian, lead a heroic charge across a bridge in order to stop the invading Nilfgaardian forces from taking it, and then the story ends with one of my favorite endings. Earlier in the book, Geralt explained that he's not actually from Rivia, he just got the name Geralt of Rivia because he thought it sounded regal. But then the Queen of Rivia knights him and he officially becomes Geralt of Rivia. I thought that ending was great. This book really showed off the horrors of war. There was a lot more focus on the refugees of war and coming across the aftermath of war and watching battles take place that these characters had no stakes in. I think that the author did a great job of striking a balance between the brutality of war and the lightheartedness of the traveling companions that joked and sang dirty songs or just got on each other's nerves in the smallest ways. I did want to bring up an issue that I've been having with not only this book, but every book so far in the Witcher series. And I haven't brought this up yet, but I'm now 5 or 6 books into this series, and every book has had this same issue, and I'm going to bring it up in this one. It's the amount of times that people repeat themselves while they're monologuing, or talk about what they're going to say before they say it. And for an example, say character A is about to explain something to character B, and character A will say, "Okay, I'm about to tell you this deep dark secret. The deep dark secret that you've come all this way to hear, come all this way to talk to me about. I'm going to tell you this deep dark secret. But when I tell you this deep dark secret, you must listen. And while I tell you this deep dark secret, you must not interrupt me. The secret that you've been waiting for, the one that you found me so that I can tell you this deep dark secret, the secret that I'm about to tell you and you cannot interrupt me and you must listen to." And I'm just sitting there like, alright, come on man, just get on with the story. Chances are I don't even care about the secret you're about to tell me. Let's just get back to Geralt, do some cool Witcher stuff, or get back to Ciri and do some cool bandit stuff. So let's move on to the characters. I want to start with Regis, the vampire. I really liked Regis as a character, and I really liked the information that he was able to give us about vampires. Things like they don't really feed on humans, human blood is just like alcohol to them. I liked how cool, calm, and collected he was. I liked all the different takes on vampires, I liked the different takes on his powers and the limitations of his powers, and I liked the fact that this incredibly ancient, powerful vampire that Geralt wasn't even sure if he'd be able to fight if he had to. I liked the fact that he was just the nicest guy and devoted himself to human medicine. He devoted all of his time and energy to healing humans. That leads us on to Milva. Milva was your stereotypical archer lady that you see everywhere. But she was the archer lady before it was a played out trope. She was the OG trendsetter archer lady. But unlike those other archer ladies, Milva had depth to her character. She wasn't ashamed to admit that she had her flaws, or that she was an uneducated character. And when people were talking too highly around her, she would tell them, "I'm uneducated, stop talking in your big words and just talk like a regular person." I've seen some other reviews on this book, and I feel as if Milva is an underrated character. I feel as if she was more integral to this team than she gets credit for. On more than one occasion, her bow saves the day. She hits a target as they're riding off to tell someone, or hits a target and saves one of the people's lives. And on more than one occasion, her knowledge of navigation, her knowledge of the forest, and her knowledge of hunting saves the day. I thought the whole pregnancy was a little weird in this book. Not so much how it happened, I understand that. A group of people thought they were gonna die, so they decided to go out with a bang. I get that, that makes sense. I think the weird part was the whole debate about whether or not she should keep the baby or not, and then after she decides, she immediately loses the baby. And I don't know, that just seemed weird to me. Maybe it amounts to something in the next book, but to me it just seemed really quick and random. Like, it all happened in the space of about 20 pages. I honestly thought it was going to be some kind of law of surprise thing, because surprise babies seem to happen a lot in this book, and they seem to have some kind of destiny attached to them. Maybe Regis turned the baby into a vampire to save its life. I don't know. I haven't started reading the next book yet. Also, guys, if you are new to my channel, I'm all about books, whether it be reading them, writing them, or reviewing them. I'm the author of this book right here. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate your subscription. And comment down below any of your thoughts or theories. Zoltan, I want to touch briefly on the dwarf and his companions. It seems that Geralt is always traveling with dwarves, and I'm all for it because I always love them. I haven't come across one of these dwarf companions of Geralt that I haven't enjoyed the company of. But the thing I liked about Zoltan and his companions was that they were morally grey characters. On the one hand, they were protecting refugees and escorting them to a safe location, even though the refugees hated them for being dwarves. But in the end, Zoltan reveals to Geralt that they robbed a rich merchant, and that was all the stuff that they were taking with them. And they'd more than likely killed that merchant. So he wasn't all good. He had depths to his character. And even in the time of war where they're coming across all these dead bodies and the two armies are colliding together and there's all this atrocity going on, he's worried that the Witcher will judge him and not shake his hand at the end of their trip together. So I really liked Zoltan. And that brings me on to Geralt. There is a common saying in the author world where if you do not know what to do next in your story, break your main character's legs. It will create drama and tension and situations that would have never existed if your character was healthy. I don't think that's particularly why the author broke Geralt's legs in the last book. I think that he did it to, one, show that Geralt was really out of that fight at the end of the last book, and to pass time. Because when you're an author, it can actually be really difficult to pass time in your books, because the author wanted 30 days to pass, but there's no way that Geralt would have done nothing in those 30 days. So they needed him to be beaten to a pulp so he couldn't do anything. And that's exactly what happened. Now, this might just be my weird take on this book, but to me this book is all about showing the desperation growing in Geralt. I feel as he's fighting and his legs are giving out from under him and his knees can't hold him anymore and he has to start relying on others, which is something that he's never had to do. I feel as if it's all to show Geralt's growing mortality. It's all to show that Geralt is getting to the end of his days and he's fighting his absolute best to get to Ciri before he loses his touch. And the reason I think that specifically is because there's a line in this series, I don't know if it's in this book or if it's in the last book, but Geralt is talking to someone else about witches. And the person says, "I don't see many retired witches." And Geralt responds, "That's because they don't retire. They grow older and slower, until they are slower than the monster they are fighting, and then they are killed. Witches don't retire." I feel personally that Geralt having to slow down and be injured is a callback to this line, where when a Witcher slows down, they die. And I feel like that's why he was in such a wild hurry in this book. It wasn't so much that he wanted to get to Ciri straight away and rescue her, it was more so the fact that he wanted to get to her before he'd slowed down too much. It was his impending mortality, not hers. But that's just my theory, but it's a pretty damn good one. At least I think so. Let me know what you think. Geralt was very sassy in this book. He was not happy to have to be relying on other people, so in a lot of traveling or camping scenes, he got really sassy and really moody, which is really interesting considering witches are not meant to be emotional at all. And that's been a theme throughout the entire series. The fact that Geralt has cared for Ciri, the fact that Geralt has strong feelings for Yennefer. So I'm really hoping that at some point throughout this series, Geralt's emotions are explained, because I believe in one of the earlier books they explain that the trial by herbs that the witches go through is meant to remove all feelings. So I'm wondering if maybe the specific trial by herbs that Geralt went through, the one that turned his hair white, if that specific trial reinstated his feelings or his empathy or something. A theory I had at one point was that he was never really mutated to begin with, but the fact that he can see in the dark as well as he can see in the day and his faster healing does show that he's definitely mutated. So I'm really interested to find out more about that. That brings me on to Ciri. Like I said, this book needs more Ciri, and I'm seriously hoping that the next book is a lot more heavily Ciri the Outlaw. And I feel as if it would be such a waste if Ciri's got this really interesting plot thread where she could become a murderous a-hole, or she could become the voice of reason in the rats, or she could become a Robin Hood style character, where she becomes a murderous a-hole, but only to rich people and then gives the money to poor people. Whatever the route, I really hope that it's not just something so simple as there's just a fight amongst the rats and then Ciri escapes. They all turn on each other. Or one of the rats betrays the rest of the party to the guy that's hunting the rats. Because I'm pretty sure there's a guy hunting the rats right now. I want to hear that Ciri's off doing cool outlaw stuff, and then she hears that Yennefer or Geralt is looking for her. But then the rest of the rats are like, we're family, you can't leave. We're thick as thieves, you know too much, you can't leave. And then she has to duel the leader in order to earn her freedom or something. Whatever, I don't know. I just hope the next book is Ciri heavy. Anyways guys, that's all I got for you today. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. And as always, thank you very much.